just being on a fantastic presentation just a couple of days ago with a chief economist. And I'm going to share a little bit of that with you just from the standpoint of getting you ready for 2021 and why goal setting is a fantastic thing to do. Now, if you came today to learn about SMART goals, the definition is on the screen. I don't want to disappoint you, but having goals that follow this acronym are important, but we're going to cover what's more important than that. So if you want to take a screen print, just a quick picture of SMART goals, if you're not familiar, the definition is all over the internet. It's just a way of making sure that when you do set a goal, that you have something that you can check it against or measure it against. So during the presentation I saw, it was by a chief economist named Dr. Edmund Seyfried, and he's professor emeritus of economics and business at Lafayette College. And he follows every single forecast that comes from the federal government from years and years and years and years. And his job is to try to determine what does he think is going to happen in the upcoming year. So the Federal Reserve puts out forecasts every single year, and then the different Federal Reserve banks all give their angle or their slant on what that is. And I'm just going to encapsulate what I saw the other day that Dr. Seyfried talked about. What he talked about was looking at all of the indicators, and he takes into account the fact that we just had a political change in the leadership of the country and everything else that goes with that. But their job at the Federal Reserve and as chief economists like Dr. Seyfried is to say, okay, based on all the data we have, consumer spending, what's happened in the past, we're coming out of a pandemic, all the indicators, what are they going to tell us is going to happen? And the overwhelming news was good. Now, that was not the case the very first time that I watched a presentation from the Philadelphia Federal Reserve all the way back in 2007. And if you think of the end of 2007, December 2007, January 2008, the exact time frame we are in now, but all the way back then, it was right before the Great Recession. And I remember watching the presentation by an economist that was, going through the data released by the Federal Reserve and all the economic indicators I saw Dr. Seyfried do. And I left the presentation. I called my wife, Christine, and I said, I think we need to start taking cash and putting it in a coffee jar and hiding it in the house. And that was, if you think about the peak, we were still in the beginning of 2008, we were riding as high as you could possibly ride. In the real estate market and everything else, we were firing on all cylinders. But every single indicator was indicating that we were going to drop and drop hard. And they were 100% correct. Now, are they always correct? No, but they're not off by orders of magnitude. So what Dr. Seyfried laid out on the presentation the other day was 2021 is going to be a very, very good growth year for selling. All the indicators for business growth for sales are up. Every single indicator, every way they measure it, it is predicting that we're going to go up. Now, it's easy to say, well, if I was going to set goals and I'm coming out of the bottom of the barrel, having just gone through the pandemic, it's easy to say we're going to go up, but that's not always the case. But I want to give you the confidence, having seen these presentations over a number of years, that they are very often very accurate. So it is really important. This is the time right now for goal setting, for you to set goals so you can capture what they are talking about that's coming up for 2021. So if you don't get this right now and get your goal set so you can capture the revenue that's going to be available for you, and definitely in 2021 into 2022, even with the change in leadership in the US government. They strongly felt they have a way to control any balances that have to happen if there's a lot of government spending, all that stuff. But you're going to have to wait 5 years if you miss this opportunity to set your goals and capture revenue. So do not miss this opportunity. All right, so today we're going to cover that. We're going to talk about your sales goals. We will talk about the thing that has to be fixed. And if you don't fix it, you're going to fail. What do your goals look like? We will talk specifically about goal getting, which is the title of our lunch and learn today, and not goal setting, but goal getting, and then the process that you have to follow to achieve your goals. So the first thing I just want to share with you is when you are setting a financial goal or a sales goal, you have to understand that it should not just be a singular number. You need to really set what we call a baseline, a stretch, and a brass ring. Now, for people that are not great at goal setting, they make a very common mistake in this area. And the mistake is when they set their goals, they make them unattainable. So they are, and if they do have a baseline goal and then they say, okay, if I overperform my baseline goal, they'll set what we call at Sales Evolution a stretch goal and then a brass ring goal. But they set them so far apart from each other that you can't hit the stretch goal. Your process for goal setting and achievement when it comes to sales is to set a baseline and then a stretch and a brass ring. And then as soon as you start to achieve them, you then reset those targets again. And that's how you climb a mountain. You climb a mountain a few steps at a time, right? So I'll just give you an example. Let's just say the sales goal for your company is $250,000 if you're a single entrepreneur, maybe a couple of people working in an office, 2-3 people. It could be $1 million if you're a more substantial business, et cetera, et cetera. So if that was your performance year to year to year, roughly around $1 million, and you're looking to grow, so your baseline goal for the year, you want to set it higher than what you've achieved so far. What you've been able to achieve, the business that you're expecting to come in, new business that's going to come in by a referral, existing contracts that you have that are going to move forward into the next year, that's actually called your momentum. So you should be expecting a certain level of business to be your momentum. And then what you're trying to figure out is, I'm not just going to predict that I'm going to achieve my momentum. I have to do something above and beyond that if I'm going to go out there and sell my product or service. So you set a baseline goal that's higher than that momentum, but it is an achievable target. So you want to do that. And what that says is, if I do the things I'm supposed to do, I'm going to increase the revenue of what I'm performing at this level, but it's going to be more than what my momentum was. Now, the difference between that and the stretch in our example is, if your target, for the year as a solo entrepreneur, et cetera, was $250,000 for the business as a baseline, your stretch should not be $350,000, $400,000, $500,000. That's too far apart. So your stretch goal on a goal of 250,000 might be 285, 275, maybe $300,000 if you're expecting that coming out of the pandemic that some things are really going to happen. And then your brass ring is set so that if you do all the things that you're supposed to do and some extra, and you had a little bit of luck and good fortune in 2021, then you're going to hit the brass ring. Now, the great news is when you start to set these and then you implement the other pieces that we're going to cover today, you're going to start to hit your baseline goal much more regularly. The only thing that will throw you off are the things that are outside of your control. So that's a really important distinction. We'll talk today about things that are conditions that you can't control, like pandemics and meteors from outer space hitting the planet. There's just things that you have no control over. You have to focus on the things that you can control. So here's the thing that you have to eliminate, or it is going to disrupt what you are planning. It is called a self-limiting belief. Most of the work that we do in helping people really hit their highest possible sales levels individually or as a team are related to getting them out of their own way. It is working with people to establish What are the limiting beliefs that they have that are going to hold them back from a sales perspective? And if you've seen this before, but you haven't acted on it, today is the day to change it. Now, what that means is you have some preconceived notion, a self limiting belief that is causing you to not take action. You might not notice that you're procrastinating or you're putting things off, et cetera, but you've got some self limiting belief that says, companies that are larger are never going to hire me for my product or service. Um, Nobody's ready to spend money yet. We just came out of a pandemic. Um, People aren't ready to start working on their houses. Whatever that is, if you have it, it's going to hold you back. And I'll just give you a simple example is when I started to really hit some very high sales levels and I was selling software, the dollar value of the deals that I started to bring in started to grow and get much, much larger. As an example, when I first started and hired my sales coach, my average deal size when I would sell software was $2,500. And I had these come in all the time. And in order to get a substantial month, it took a lot of work to get enough $2,500 opportunities together to make a substantial income when I was making 10% of whatever I sold. So as I progressed and I started to hit my goals, my deal size started to get much, much larger. I started to do what we call fishing in a bigger pond. I was calling on businesses that were larger than I had called on in the past. For people that sell their product or service to individuals, like a financial advisor or realtor, they start to work with people of a higher net worth. They have more money to invest. That's what I'm talking about. And pretty soon, the deals that I was looking at were 25, 30, 35, $40,000 coming in regularly. But my self-limiting belief started to evolve was people aren't going to pay that much for software for their sales team. Fortunately for me, my coach got a hold of me and said, "Why are you hesitating about the money?" He heard it. He could hear it in my voice. He heard the way I talked about it. He could see that I was having a problem in this area. And then we talked about the things you see on the screen. Is it really true? Yes or no? And he took me through the math. And just as an example of how to evaluate your self-limiting belief and determine it's true, my coach said to me, "How much do you think they pay the people that use your software?" And I said, "Well, their sales teams, I imagine most of them are making $100,000." He said, "Okay, they make $100,000, add benefits to it, $120,000. How many people are typically there?" There's usually 10 or more. He said, "Okay, so it's $1.2 million for the sales team to be out there using your product and service. You're asking them for $25,000 to manage all of the activity of a sales team that is easily bringing in that they're paying 1.2 million and those people are bringing in tens of millions of dollars if they're making $1.2 million in income with benefits." He said, "Where is the problem?" But it took that analysis to figure out that I was the blockade, that there was something telling me that I wasn't going to be able to make it. So this is a simple analysis that you can do for yourself to determine what is it. And if you haven't talked with somebody else about what that self-limiting belief is, the first is you have to identify it and you have to focus on what it is, potentially talk to somebody else about it so that you can get rid of it because it is a barrier that is going to hold you back if you do not take care of it. Now, you have an added challenge, and that challenge is your brain. Your brain is going to control what you do in the way of planning and then what you do in the way of execution. And simply put, your brain is in a fight over what you are going to do and the goals that you're going to achieve. And it works like this. The frontal lobe of your brain, as they've studied, is the planning and development portion of your brain. It's the part of your brain that thinks, where am I going to go on vacation? What is my sales target for the year? How am I going to get there? What do I have to do? What do I want to achieve in life? That is all this. It's the part of the brain in the front called the frontal lobe. And that is the part of the brain that works on creativity, planning, setting goals, and everything that goes along with it. But there's a second part of your brain that is more powerful than the frontal lobe of your brain. And it's in the very center of your brain, the hypothalamus. And then some scientists also report the amygdala is additionally a part of the brain that challenges the things that you plan and you attempt to execute. And here's the issue. The issue is that center part of your brain, the hypothalamus, is the fight or flight part of your brain. It's the part of your brain that says, oh my gosh, I forgot to send that person that email. Stop what you're doing, send the email right now. It's the part of your brain that when you have a health and fitness goal and you are driving to the gym because you set a health and fitness goal in January, you're in your workout outfit, you're headed there. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, something pops into your brain and it says, you forgot to pick this thing up, whether it's something from the supermarket for dinner, whatever it is, and you turn the car around and you go and take care of whatever popped into your brain. So that part, think of you set a to-do list of things you want to get done, and then all of a sudden the things pop into your head that feel like the tyranny of the urgent. It's the center of your brain that is overtaking the frontal cortex. And what they've studied is that fight or flight part of your brain, it is more powerful than your frontal lobe by a magnitude. So it will trump anything that you're trying to do. So how do you overcome that? And the strategies that you overcome it used, I think the best one is being able to communicate with someone else what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And I'll give you a very granular example of a way that you can do that. Let's just take health and fitness for an example. If you said, I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to do it by working out and eating healthy, and that workout part of it, that you're going to go get that cardio done, you're going to do all that stuff that's going to help you lose that weight. Well, to make sure that you don't allow that center part of your brain to take over and make you turn right, is you establish a partner. Because here's the thing about having what people call a wingman, they call it an accountability partner, a coach, whatever it might be. When you determine that you're going to go work out, but you're going to do it with your sister or your brother or somebody else from the gym, a buddy, and you're going to do that activity together, your brain does not control the workout partner. That's the difference. So you're not only communicating the goals, but you're trying to set things that you're going to do together. That partner expects you to be there to get something done, etc. So when you work together with somebody on a joint goal, you are much more likely to achieve that goal than if you work on it in a vacuum. So for the solo entrepreneurs on the phone, this is a tough thing to do. You got to pick the right person. Often your spouse is not the right person to pick. Often somebody that's a friend that is going to say, it's okay, Tony. You know what? You'll get there next week, right? It cares for you greatly, but wants to give you some slack. Not a good accountability partner, right? You want somebody that's going to hold you accountable. And that is the thing that will keep you from disrupting yourself. So for some people, this is a very significant issue to the point where they call it self-sabotage. And here are the signs that you may have been experiencing self-sabotage. The first, procrastinating on a goal, obliging self-indulgent behavior, escapism, avoidance, negative self-talk, negative thinking, perfectionism, or relentless research, right? Relentless research. You know what? Before I take that next step toward my goal, I have to go research things. We have a great client that is a data analytics guru, and his name's Bob. And Bob uses data to figure out when his sales team is supposed to be doing activity to hitting their sales target. He wanted to make it as simple as possible so that when they picked up that phone, the likelihood that they were talking to somebody who needed their help was incredibly highly likely. So he did a lot of work with the data analytics, making sure that the companies that they were after matched the exact kind of people who needed the help of this firm to help them with what they call class action commercial lawsuits. So Bob did all the analytics, he got all the data together. He knew that if the people dialed the phone, there was more than a 3/4 chance, 3 out of 4 occasions, that they were going to be talking to someone who who would benefit from a class action lawsuit and recouping money from it. And his sales team would say to him, well, before I call, DuPont, I want to do a little research about that division. I want to go research and look it up online. And Bob would listen to him very patiently, and he would shake his head and he would say, do me a favor. I just want you to try it my way first. Just do the activity. Just call and don't do the research and see what happens. And in every single case, Bob's sales reps started to sell more business. So part of what holds people back is activity. There has to be a combination of two things in order for you to be successful when it comes to hitting the goal. You have to have the right mindset and you have to have the right activity level. If you don't have those two things together, you're not going to hit the goal. There is a third piece, which is the process, and then we're going to talk about how to do it. But what challenges a lot of people is just the urgency of things that come up. And if you followed Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it's based on this thing called the Eisenhower box. And the quarter box on the lower left is the one that people don't do enough. Alex and I are huge proponents of it at Sales Evolution. It is called delegating. Now, for some of you, if you're an individual and you're running your own business, it's who do I delegate it to? Well, guess what? In order to hit your goals, you might need a virtual admin. You might need to say no to people and not do things. And for a lot of people, telling people no is a very difficult thing to do. But everybody is after your time. And if you have a goal and you're trying to hit it, you're going to have to learn to say the word no to people. You might have to say it to a spouse. You might have to say it to a coworker, an employee, a manager. You might have to say it to people that you're networked with. But there's going to be times that you have to say no, and there's going to have to be times that you reach out to somebody else and you say, hey, this is something that I think that somebody else should do. I just can't commit the time. Now, if you're a person that fell victim to any of the things that I mentioned on the last 3 slides that I had up, meaning self-sabotage, negative self-talk, any of that, there's a great book that one of our clients recommended to me that I read because I had talked about, hey, I'm talking to a lot of people who have this negative self-talk, and we're doing a lot of coaching calls around getting rid of and freeing them from beating themselves to death. And it's called The 4 Winds. And it is a great book. It's about this Indian tribe called the Toltec Indians. And it's just an awesome book. It's an easy read. And it is The 4 Winds. And the piece that they say in The 4 Winds that I will never forget is when that thought comes up, hey, Tony, you failed. You know what? You blew it. You're never going to hit this. What they said was, one time is it. You'll allow it to come into your head one time, and then you're going to forgive yourself. And after you forgive yourself, that's it. You're forgiven. So if you want to read something that's about that and you feel like that's one of your barriers, that is a book that I would highly recommend that I think is really going to help you. All right, so where do you go from here and how do you actually make it happen? So this is what comes up next. If you do goal getting It's about movement. It's not just setting the numbers on a sheet of paper. It's about what am I going to do to achieve it? How do I envision it? What does it look like before I start to act? But here is the thing, and this is, if you do not have this connection, this is why you have not hit your goals before. You have to have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, you will not work toward achieving the goal. What do I mean by a purpose? Your individual goals are synergistic, right? You've got to connect what you're trying to accomplish from a work standpoint to your own personal definition of success. If Alex and I asked you and said, what is it that you're trying to achieve? You might say, I want another $100,000 in income. I want $50,000 more in income. I want to double my income. All of that is great, but there has to be a why. What are you going to do with the money? Why are you growing the business? What does it do for you if the business grows? What's life going to be like? What car are you going to drive? Where are you going on vacation? What are you going to do with it? And if you can't establish that personal why, I'm good. I've got everything I need. You're the person that at the holidays, nobody can buy a gift for because you've got everything, right? If you're there, you're going to be challenged, right? You have to be reaching for the next mountain. I met a guy years ago, used to work for a Coca-Cola company many, many years ago. And I met this guy. And in the first conversation with him about something completely different, it came out that he has a goal that he's going to go to the top peak of a mountain in every single state in the United States. And when I met him, he was about 14 or 15 states into it. And I just said, what made you do that? And he said, it's just something that I want to reach for. I've got a great job. I've got a great family. I want something else. And he said, some of them are easy. You just drive to the top and you're there. Others you have to climb and they're more difficult. But what was different was everybody that knew this guy knew that this was his goal. So the question for you is why? What is it that you need? I remember when I first started working with my coach, Scott, and he said, look, I would love to bring you on and I would love to do coaching with you, but I have to understand why. If I don't understand the why, I'm not bringing you on. Think about that. Think about your product or service and you saying to somebody, I'm not going to take you on as a client. I know you called me and I know you want to buy my stuff. I'm not going to take you as a client. It is an awesome sales question, by the way, because the person you're speaking to, if you're in B2B sales, is going to say, hey, I want to hire you because, and they'll come back with some business reason. I'm trying to grow the company. I think marketing will give us better exposure. Whatever that answer is, it'll be business related. Take it one step further and ask them why. I get that you want to grow the business or improve the business or make the business look better. I get that. But why? What is it? That's the key that you have to connect back to your own personal beliefs and what you want to accomplish and determine what that why is. And if you don't know what it is, you're going to have a very, very difficult time achieving goals. That's the thing that makes you stop. It makes you stop going to the gym. It makes you not pick up the phone and make that next sales call. It makes you not ask somebody for a referral. It is the thing that knocks the train off the tracks. So what is your why? You need to come out of this session. You need to know what it is, and you need to start to envision it the way that Olympic athletes envision themselves going down the track, going through the ribbon. They envision it over and over and over again. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, envisioning what he's doing. If you need a little competition and you've got, more than one person in your office, competition is awesome. It is a thing that will drive people to do things that they were never able to achieve before. If you're all by yourself and you're alone, it's harder to do. But just as a great example, when it comes to NBA sports and basketball and all that. Phil Jackson, his list of accomplishments is really long. He played on the New York Knicks championship team. He was the CBA Coach of the Year. He won the NBA championship with the Chicago Bulls and then won it again. He won the championship with the LA Lakers. Look at who he coached: Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. The list goes on and on and on. When he was receiving his induction into the NBA Hall of Fame, he talked about his parents, who were both ministers. And when he talked about his parents, he talked about his mother specifically. And think about all those people he coached. He said, the most competitive person I ever met in my entire career, including my professional career in my life, was my mother. She would stop at nothing to compete. She coached her high school basketball team and she competed like crazy. But for him, he looked at that and the way that she competed, and then he took it to the teams and got them to do the same thing. And it just was a never-ending solution for him for success. So one of the things you do to connect, the activity that you do to connect, is a thing called Letter to Your Future Self, and understanding what your future self is. There's a great video about a Google talk by a woman named Kelly McGonigal, right? And Kelly does a talk, and it is about willpower. So if you Google Kelly McGonigal, 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 and you Google willpower, it's a long talk, but it's really powerful. It talks about your brain and why you achieve the things you do, but it talks about this concept of your future self and actually writing a letter to your future self about what you're going to accomplish. When we do it with our folks that are clients of ours that are in the program, we actually have them write it a slightly different way. Is they write a letter from their future self to the person that they are today, stating, here are the things that happened that are the reason that I did not hit my goals. So we focus on what is the thing that is going to make you not hit it. When are you going to give up and why? What are the things that you're going to do that are going to make you stop? And when you analyze those, and if you write that letter to yourself, they are immediately in your front windshield, and you'll see them, and you'll be able to avoid them the same way that you would avoid a deer that's crossing the road when you're on a rural road and you see the deer crossing sign. So you slow down a little bit, you see the deer crossing and you avoid it. That's exactly what you're going to do if you do the letter to your future self. Kelly McGonigal. Then I just want to talk for just 30 seconds about this guy, Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor from 161 to 180 AD. And he was famous for his personal journal and his meditations, where he talked about, like, why are we here and why am I trying to do this? And it was why. But the takeaway from Marcus is this: when you try to achieve your goals, you can only focus on what you can control. If you focus or are diverted by conditions, you cannot control conditions. You can't control a pandemic. You can't control anything related to, government, the economy, any of that stuff. You can't. But what you can do is decide what you're going to do and then adapt to the situation that you're in. So you can't control conditions, but what you can control is you. It might mean that if your industry is going through a down period, maybe you got to dial the phone twice as much. But what you have to do is recognize and separate conditions from things that are not conditions. All right. Now, before we do a quick exercise, I'll just talk about this. When you do your individual goal setting, name the goal, value test the goal. Does it fit what you're trying to accomplish? Pressure test it, right? Does it follow the SMART test? Is it specific, measurable, actionable, right? Does it have a time associated with it? You're going to accomplish it by when? And when I say your why, like your personal why, if I achieve these sales goals, I'm going to do something in life that's awesome. Think big. and then start to write down things that are individual first steps to achieve that massive goal. When we did this with a client where we had the whole sales team in the room, we had people who raised their hand and they said, the one guy said, I'm a musician. I'm going to play on stage on the Warped Tour in California. This guy's sitting in Pennsylvania. He's working at a company. He said, I'm going to travel on tour with a tour called the Warped Tour, which is a known tour. I'm going to be a drummer on stage at the Warped Tour in California. And we said, by when? He said, in the next 2 years. We got an email from the guy thanking Dave Light and myself, one of our other leadership coaches, saying, I just want to let you know I'm performing on stage this week in California. I didn't forget you guys. I hit it. Right? So think big. Had somebody else who said, I'm starting a drag race strip in Costa Rica, or one of the islands in the middle of the Caribbean, right? And the guy was from that island and actually could envision. The thing was, he was envisioning the actual drag strip, what it was going to be like, where it was going to be. And his simple first step, just as an example of writing first steps, he wrote a simple first step. And what he wrote down, and he said, find out property values in that area. He could Google it. And he just started to take these little steps, find out how much it is. How are you going to behave when you hit your goal? Well, are you going to drive a black Jeep Wrangler? Well, take a step and find out how much they are used. How much is a black Jeep Wrangler used? If that's part of your goal, right? How much is that thing? So you can figure it out now and you go, okay, that's $25,000. How am I going to get it, right? You're going to find yourself going out and acquiring accounts and go, whoa, I got $3,000 toward my Jeep. Before you know it, you're going to be in the Jeep, right? All right, grab a blank sheet of paper. And I just want you to blitz. Now, when Warren Buffett did this with a pilot that he met, he said, I want you to write down 25 business goals right away as fast as you can on a sheet of paper. They were just standing talking somewhere. He said, grab a sheet of paper, write down 25. I just want you, for the sake of time right now, to write down 10 business goals, fast and furious. Write them down. 10 business goals, put them down. And if you're more on the personal side and you go, I want to work on the personal side, guys, then write down 10 of your personal goals. But today's session is really about hitting sales numbers for 2021. So business goals, put them down real quick. You don't have to have a lot of definition around it. Just put it down. I'm gonna pick up Abington Hospital as an account this year. I'm gonna pick up 3 new hospitals this year. Whatever those might be, and blitz them. Just get them down on a sheet of paper fast. And then I'll tell you what Warren Buffett said immediately. If you're not familiar with Warren Buffett, one of the world's greatest investors of all time, right? I remember reading an article, as you write these down, about somebody that Warren knew personally. They were just professors at a university in New York. And he said, they said, can you help us? And he said, well, just how much can you afford, like, to put aside? And they just started sending him a check. And when it was a husband-wife team, when the husband died, the woman looked at the account and she had $50 million in the bank. It was unbelievable. They just gave him a little bit of money at a time. Warren just kept, investing it for him, but that's the kind of guy he was. And he focuses on things that are going to work. Like, one of Warren's mantras is, I want to invest in a company with a product that I don't understand. I don't care how good the opportunity is. I don't care if I could make 5 times what I put into it. If I don't understand it, I won't invest in it. Right? So think about understanding them. All right, you got your 10? Right now, circle the top 5 that you have to achieve out of the 10. Now, granted, when you leave the session today, you're going to do this with 25 goals, not 10. Circle the top 5 and just put a circle around. Here's what Warren said. He turned to the pilot and he said, okay, you circled the top 5. What about the ones that you didn't circle? In his case, he had 20 that he didn't circle. And he just said, what are your thoughts about achieving the things on the list? And he said, well, I'll focus on the top 5, but if I have some extra time or it's easy, I'll try to accomplish some of these other 20. And what do you think Warren said to him? Warren said, no, you're not. You are only going to do those 5 things. The other 20, you are not permitted to do until you accomplish the 5. To give you 100% focus, say, those are things I want to do, but in order to get to them, I have to do the 5. So you start working solely on the 5. So after you leave today's session, what you have to do is get your full list of 25. Take the top 5 from that. You can save the list, but the only piece that you're going to work on now, you're making a new list, which is your top 5 things that you're going to work on. And the last bullet point on this page is the most important, which is picture your success. Make a vision board. Take pictures of it. If what you were going to do once you hit the goal is drive that Jeep, get a picture of a black Jeep and put it on a board. Look at it, touch it, feel it. Go to a dealership and look at them up close. The closer you can see it, feel it, touch it, smell it. If you can do that and involve all of your senses, the more likely you are to hit that goal. But you have to do it. So where's the process? Activity. You have to establish, where am I now, right now, in relation to those 5 goals? Where do I want to be? And what is the immediate next step that I have to take to getting to where I want to be, even if they're small? Even if it's the guy that said, I'm going to Google what property values are in my home country so I can build the drag strip. Even if it's look up how much today a used Jeep Wrangler is. That's the step. So what is the immediate next step to getting to where you want to be? And then you've got to map them out. And at the end, if you send us an email, we'll put the email addresses on the screen. If you send us an email, we'll send you a copy of the goal-getting sheet. So you would create one of these sheets for each of the goals that you're going to try to hit in 2021. So you'll follow the SMART goals, specific, measurable, actionable, time-based, right? And then realistic. All those things, you're going to put them in there one at a time, and then you're going to establish what the benefit is, and then you have to put in your possible solution and the possible obstacles. You have to have both. You must identify the obstacles. The better you are at identifying the obstacles, the more likely you are to hit the target. So it's a 2-page form. On the second page, you put in the specific actions that are necessary to hit the goal. Who can help you achieve it? So establishing, if I'm going to reach out and I'm going to ask for help, where am I going? And it's not just I'm going out and asking somebody, hey, do you have like $25,000? But you might. In your case, you might. Maybe you've got a really big goal and you need financing. I don't know. But how are you going to track your progress toward the goal? Does it support your values? What's the affirmations you have to do to support the goal? You might have to do an affirmation every day where you say, I'm going to be driving a Jeep Wrangler 2025. When I get done this thing, whatever it is, that affirmation is powerful. But the visualization of it is even more powerful. So the people that hit their goals, they do this all the time. They don't even think about it. They envision where they're going to be over and over and over again, so that the work that they are doing 9 to 5, or in your case, it might be 9 to 9 if you're working hard and you're busting it, right? You got a little bit of hustle going on. That is what you're going to do to drive the activities. The activities won't even feel like work when you know you're hitting the goal. But here's what it boils down to. What are you going to do to make sure that you hit your goals in 2021 and not miss the opportunity that's in front of you? Because all the indicators are that business is going to grow in 2021. You don't want to be the one that looks back and says, I should have. I went on that session. I should have written things out. I should have done things differently. I should have started med school, whatever it is, right? But more so, what happens if you get to this time next year and you're in the same spot because you stopped, because you didn't take the time to match it to what you're after? How are you going to feel? Think about that right now, because that's the thing that's going to drive you into action. Goal getting is taking those little steps that are on that sheet to start hitting the target. And you need to do it. Sometimes you won't even think, I don't know if I have the money. You might need to practice some meditation. Really good book that I had the quote on the first screen. If it's for you about really hitting a big number, great book by Jen Sincero, is a relatively new book. It's called You're a Badass at Making Money. Great book. If you need motivation, this is a motivational book. It's going to get you focused on it. You are a badass at making money. Just really good read, easy read, but it'll get you motivated to get pumped and do it. All right, Alex. I've got the email addresses up if you want a copy of the form. What's your safety net? What's your insurance policy to hit it? And I will open it up for questions. Do you have anything in the chat that you think we should address, Alex?
I think first and foremost, everybody's looking for the names of the books that you mentioned throughout the process. If you name them out, I'll type them in.
Yeah, the 4 Winds, WINDS. I forget the title, but it's about the Toltec Indians. You'll see it on Amazon right away. It's in the library too. In most libraries you can get it and borrow it. It doesn't cost anything to go to a library, but you have to drive there. So the 4 Winds is one, and that is, if you're looking for that, hey, I've got this negative self-talk that keeps popping in, it'll pop up, but you have to decide what you're going to do with it. The last one was You're a Badass at Making Money, and that's by Jen Sincero, Sincero. The YouTube video, and I'll type that into everybody so you get it, because Kelly spells her name slightly differently, but it's Kelly McGonigal, and it's about willpower, and it's great. And she really hits a roll about 15 or 20 minutes in when she starts talking about your brain. That's the part I want you to focus on if you watch Kelly's video. Like, the brain is just, when she starts going over it, it's revealing. It's great. It is great stuff. All right. Another good one you can watch, another great thing that just talks about sort of the universe connecting things for you that you won't even recognize while it's happening, is Steve Jobs. His commencement speech at Stanford is a great YouTube video if you watch that. Steve talks about he was adopted, and he almost didn't get adopted because his birth mother only wanted him to go to a family where they had gone to college and completed college. And the family that wound up adopting him, the parents didn't go to college, but they made an agreement with the birth mother that Steve would go to college. He winds up in I would call it kind of like an artsy type college. And he's going through college, and he takes a course on calligraphy, and he's like, what in the world? Like, I'm taking a course. First of all, he tried to drop out, but he didn't leave the school. So he tries to drop out. He doesn't leave the school. He takes a course in calligraphy, figuring, I'm not good at the school thing. Let me take something that I can't possibly fail out of. So he takes calligraphy. He's learning how to make all those fancy S's and all that. And sure enough, don't you know, then he winds up designing one of the world's greatest computer system. And the difference maker for Steve's company was the fonts. If you think about the fonts when they first came out in all the Apple products, sans serif, all those fancy fonts that came out, that was the difference between Apple and Microsoft. And it directly came from Steve's experience, having taken, this course that he never could have foreseen was going to be the thing, in the future. And he details how that happened in his commencement speech at Stanford, which is great. So that's just a great watch if you like that. All right, other questions?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions for Tony.
Self-limiting beliefs. So your key takeaways are self-limiting beliefs. If you have them, you have to identify what it is, put it on a sheet of paper, analyze, is it real? How do I get rid of this self-limiting belief, right? The first step is identifying that it's there, right? Is, can I sell to a hospital chain? Well, they buy my promotional. Can I do something that big, right? That's one of those. If you're holding yourself back, you got to stop. Once you're out of your own way, then you can plow forward And then you've got to envision what you're after, but there has to be a why. I remember when Scott Messer, my coach, asked me, he's like, why are we doing this, Tony? Why are we doing this? Immediately, boom. I said, I want to replace my HVAC system and I want to do it with cash. I don't want to go for a credit line. I don't want to borrow it. I'm sick of that lifestyle. I want a different lifestyle where I buy major home improvements with cash. And he said, why? He wouldn't stop with why. Why is that important to you? I said, I grew up and my parents didn't have any money, and every time something happened, it was a financial crisis. And if the air goes and I don't have the cash, I'm going to melt. Like I'm going to melt. I'm going to feel like you are your parents. And for me, that was so emotional, like boom. He said, okay, I'm willing to coach it. It's going to cost a significant amount of money. And I said, how much? I wanted the number because in my head, I said, I'm getting that money. And I immediately just said, how do I justify that? Like, how do I justify spending that much on myself? If you read Jen's book about being a badass with money, she did. It's amazing. Like her story is identical to my story. It was a leap of faith. I thought, man, oh man, this guy better be good because I have the first payment. I don't think I have the second, third, and fourth payment. If he helps me, I'll have more money in the second month than I had in the first month. Literally, that's what I was thinking. Like when we get to the third month, I might not be able to pay him, but I'm going to do a really good job in the first 2 months. So when I came in and I agreed to have him as an accountability partner and a coach, no matter what he told me to do, I did it because I thought to myself, I have to do it the way he's telling me to do it in order to be successful, or I'll never be able to say, I tried it and it didn't work. I have to try it all the way. I got to jump all the way in. And that was the thing that he just said, you are growing faster than I could have even imagined. And it was because I was ready. He called it putting lighter fluid on my head, lighting my hair on fire, which it looks like I did, but I didn't do that, actually. I didn't do that. But I would have. If he said, do it. If he said, and there were times I would leave an account, call him and say, this is how it went. He said, how far are you away from the account? I said, 5 minutes. He goes, turn the car around and go back in and tell him you forgot to ask a question. I turned that car around every single time and called him and said, I went back in. This is what they said. But I was willing to do it. All right. Any final questions, Alex?
None that are here, but as always, everybody knows where to find us on
Yep.
this. I think this is a good one, for all of us as we start this year. I think we kind of shed it last year off as an excuse, but there's definitely a theme here, of we have to be careful first and foremost of our attitude. And there's a burden about the news with everything with the news.
Yes.
That can change our attitude. So one of the things as, self-limited beliefs and always look at really, really behind the scenes is you got to make sure that you're aligned with attitude before you focus, before you do your time, because that's the number one area. And attitude could spread everywhere because it's incidental and it's really, it's things like this, oh, you know what? I don't want to call Bob. I don't want to bother Bob. You know what? I shouldn't call the CIO. They don't want to hear from me. Phone calls are irrelevant. So attitude bleeds over from what you feel already of a burden in life and everything else to the activities in sales. You may not see it, but that's how it is. It really correlates. It's not just a sales attitude. So there's something I heard, and I'll share it briefly. There was somebody, one of the Sharks, Damon, said that when he goes to sleep and when he wakes up, he gives thanks to everything that he does before he goes to bed, and when he wakes up in the morning,
Yeah.
he goes thank you, he says thank you in the evening, and in the morning he says, I love a hot shower, I love a warm coffee, I love this, I love that, because that means your attitude is winding up for positivity. So he wasn't doing it he had to reaffirm himself. It's going to be a great day. And the best way to do it is he had to talk out loud. I love a hot shower. I love this. I love that. And it seems, over the top. But in reality, that means that all of a sudden you're hitting a great note before even the first cup of coffee is done, because you don't think about, oh, I got 10 phone calls, I got 20 this, I got this. So really focus on the small stuff to get there is the key. And don't stress.
Yeah.
And it's like a diet. If any of you have done it, everybody usually goes all in, and they usually tell you to really, really gradually work your way there. So don't, if not, you'll stress again. And
Yeah, and like if a great example, if you're caught up in the political thing, like, and you weren't, you're not on Joe Biden's side. Guess what? The other side is rocking and rolling, man. They're looking forward to 4 years. It's going to be awesome. So you got to think in your head, that's where I want to be. I want to be awesome. So don't get bogged down in that stuff. Oh, we do have an ask, which is our social media is at the bottom. We're on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And if you would, connect with us, comment, anything like that. We're in a big marketing and social media push this year, and it would really help Alex out. Don't do it for me, do it for Alex, which is, like us, join us, connect with us. That would be really important for us for the upcoming year. And if anything I said just is like you're freaking out on the inside, email one of us and we'll take a couple minutes and just chat with you and see, if there's anything we can do, a couple questions we can ask you to help you figure it out. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Marcy, go ahead. And everybody else, our session, we're 1 o'clock, so session's over. I'm going to stay on for a couple minutes to answer questions, but you are free to go and start on your first step toward achieving your goal. Do it right away. All right, Marcy, go ahead.
This was mind blowing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Enjoyed it tremendously. I agree with Ken. There's so many 4 wins. One by Kristen Hanna, who's one of my girly writers, which I love.
Yep.
I don't think it's the same book. So
okay. And I'll look it up for you in a second. Any other questions? I'll stop screen share and then I'll grab it for you. Hold on. I'll tell you the author in 1 second.
Hey guys, Dave Foster here. I just want to say great session. Thank you. A lot of stuff that some common sense. You kind of get wrapped up in getting busy and you forget some of these things sometimes. So, but great session on bringing it back, and definitely will be making that list of goals. So thank you. I'm signing off now. I've got another call to get onto, but thanks very much. Great session.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Okay, 4 wins. Where is that? Cover that I have, I don't, oh, now I've got it. Here it is. You know what? I said it wrong. It's the 4 agreements, not the 4 wins. Sorry about that. The 4 agreements. My apologies. 4 agreements, and it is by Don Miguel Ruiz, R-U-I-Z.